All right, what up, everybody? Welcome to the IAG Thursday Thing. This thing we do every Thursday where we all kind of hang out, maybe learn something new, try to have new and interesting people on as much as humanly possible, and the goal here is to have a good time and maybe accidentally learn something. So that's what we're going to attempt to do here. This week is a little different, though. Last week, I was at IAG. That was kind of fun. I was in the crying closet. And Dylan and I got no sleep all week. Zero sleep. Dylan is here now. I might actually have you move to right there when you start talking.
I can sit behind you guys.
Yeah, because then it'll shoot, because the front of this mic is the only way it's going to hear you.
There we go. All huddled up together. I wish you guys could see this.
So... last week I was in the crying closet. We did the podcast there. Dylan and I ran on basically no sleep. So let's just try to catch everybody up on what's going on.
Yeah, I actually didn't sleep from Friday morning till Monday at like 2 a.m.
Yeah. And yeah, that was probably about right. So we basically had to get the majority of the mechanical stuff done on Boogey. And then transport Boogey from IAG to Dialed In Motorsports in Manhattan, Kansas. We're hanging out with our boy Sam putting the wiring harness together. So we're going to bring him on here in a sec. We were trying to leave mid-Saturday, I think was our original goal. Mm-hmm. And we got out of there at straight up midnight, Sunday night, aka Monday morning.
Correct.
Yep, we drove for as long as I could see straight, so it was about 4 a.m. We parked. We got to Columbus, Ohio, and then a Mazda 3 decided to try to drive under the car.
Under the
RV. Tried to kill himself under my RV, so he damn near took the front of the RV off. That was fun. But we made it out here. Yeah, and then that's what we've been doing ever since. So, now there's strings everywhere. So we're here with Sam. What's up, buddy?
All good.
So he is, this is Dialed In Motorsports, and your profession is tuning and wiring.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's a lot more that goes into wiring than I ever imagined. I think Dylan and I are both learning an absurd amount in a very short period of time. I think Dylan had a small concept of what he was getting into. Like, every time he walks into the room and shows me something, I'm like, what? Yeah, it's been crazy. So, we've got the wiring harness mapped out using rope.
Yep.
Which was we went over to, Menards and got rope. And
yep.
Yeah, put together the harness, and you guys are going to start, I guess, putting that together today because we had to wait for some connectors and some other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but there's a lot more planning that goes into it than I thought.
Well, what do you mean? You just this should only take 10 minutes. Well, this is only that to that, so whatever.
Yeah. Well, you'll have that on those big jobs.
Yeah. That was rough. I'm not going to lie. You guys have been going at that hard for a couple of days, and I was I'd walk up and be like, why would that take so long? But then I'll sit there and listen to the conversation you guys are having, and I'm like, well, that's why it takes so long.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I want to chat about today is, there are a lot of, first off, motorsports wiring is wild. Wild. I'm still learning why you would want to come off of a stock engine harness and not just adapt something to it. Because you could put an M-Tron in a car using some sort of patch harness. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of advantages and disadvantages to that. Mm-hmm. One of them being that the stock harness is just straight up heavy. There's a lot of extra shit to it, and it's kind of put together like gas. But I'm kind of I'm having trouble figuring out where I want to go with this.
Yeah.
Where, like, what I want you to essentially do is sell me on this whole thing. I know why now, mostly, why we're doing this, other than it's just, dude, it's going to look so good.
Yeah.
But there's more to it.
Well, I guess the first thing I could say is something against it, even though it sounds backwards, is it's really not for everyone. Not everyone needs a motorsports wiring harness.
No.
Typically, the people that want a motorsports wiring harness are people that either want the look or they want the performance that comes with making a harness in like a quote-unquote what's commonly referred to as mil-spec. But the thing about motorsports wiring is that no matter what, it's going to be expensive. And one of the things that you were mentioning earlier, like a lot more goes into it than just pulling wires and crimping terminals.
Yes.
So that means that it takes a lot more time than just making a simple harness out of braided looming or convoluted plastic tubing like split tubing and stuff like that. So, so the first thing I'm going to say about it is it's not for everyone. And if you're looking into it, it's probably because it's you already know that you want it. You're just trying to figure out if you can afford it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, I think, that you don't realize you need until probably past the time that you need it.
Yeah.
So Dylan and I have both been saying, like, the fire last year sucked, but it's kind of a blessing in disguise because we really needed to do this, and the more this is starting to come together, the more we're starting to realize how much more we needed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, just speaking from having the experience with the car over the past, going on the second year.
Yep.
There was a lot of things that were just wired up and worked, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. It worked, it was loomed, it was correct, sensors read, things did stuff, solenoids actuated, and it worked. But obviously going with all the crazy electronics that we're going into, and the car is just progressing into something more than it was, it just kind of made sense for us to go that extra level to have something basically custom fitted. It's a custom built electrical harness.
Yeah.
So it won't plug into anybody else's car because everything's measured to length of where it's going to sit among the components we have in the car. So it's pretty wild to see. And, I thought I had a decent grasp on, I could probably wire it up, and things might work, there might be a couple backward sensors.
Sure.
But, watching Sam kind of get after it, it just clicks in his head. So, it's a totally different thing. And then obviously Dewey has been
You're good.
kind of questioning, why do we even need to do this? It just takes more time. It takes more time. And, it's one of those things that just kind of seems to slow roll at the beginning, but when it finally all comes together, it seems to pick up speed. So.
Yeah, and one of the things that, probably would have saved our ass a little bit last year is if we would have had this harness during the Inferno that was last year, there's a good chance we would still have a harness, or we would only be replacing a part of the harness.
Yeah. I mean, so in theory, if the engine bay catches on fire again, this harness is separated into sections.
Yes.
So where your old harness was not, it just kind of ran through the firewall.
Well, the old harness, so everybody understands, was a Haltech. It was one of Haltech's universal harnesses.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was everything comes off the harness and spaghetti's to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
It wasn't like sectioned out. Well, I'm just gonna be real. Like the heat stuff on the outside was. They don't really give any of that to you, so you use what you got.
Correct.
So you put some random heat shrink or whatever on it, but it's
and it worked.
It worked.
Yeah,
it worked good. It worked good for years. It even worked good after I repaired it because I cooked half of it.
So this way now is if, God forbid, I'm going to knock on wood, we have another fire in the engine bay. If it only affects one side of the car, that's only one harness that has to get rebuilt. And most likely with the stuff that we're using between the DR25 and everything else and it being
What is
sealed,
DR25?
Well, I'll let Sam answer that question because I feel like he's a little bit more equipped on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. When I keep going, I'll go over all the technical details.
Yeah. So I mean, again, like I was saying, it's going to be a little bit more resistant to things, and it's going to be a little bit it's stronger and just more resistant to a lot of things. So
that's also going to go into some of the way that we're running the wires, like the type of how you would run the wires under the engine bay, the whole twist of the wires.
Yep. And Sim, I think is
we're gonna let him chat on that. That was crazy. When you were showing me that stuff last night. So I had a quick question. It kind of plays into what's up. For the uninitiated and uninformed, what are the differences between having a motorsports wiring harness versus your regular wiring harness? And again, going back to this is one of those situations you don't know that you need it until you need it. If you have a stock ECU, or you're running a Cobb or something like that, or a very, very basic plug and play, this probably isn't for you. This is some straight up real race car shit. Okay, if you're rethinking entirely how you want to go about the car, this is real race car shit. So, if you're worried about keeping AC, you don't want to have a conversation about this harness. That's not what it's about.
I mean, you could keep AC with this harness.
You totally could.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if that's on your list of things you're worried about, this probably isn't the right harness for you.
Sure.
Yeah. Like Dylan said, you can make the harness have everything and anything integrated to it. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's like if you're concerned about street car stuff, then probably you're not really wanting to budget for what a motorsports wiring harness costs. In reality, like street cars, I would say they're probably, for the most part, more complicated to build harnesses for because of those creature comforts. You have a lot more bigger gauge stuff, higher amperage stuff than you do on a standard like engine with just injectors, coils, sensors, all that stuff. So it's probably going to be more expensive to make a mil-spec harness or a motorsports harness for a street car than an actual race car. A lot more goes into it. Going back to the question about DR25, and then I'll go back to that question that was asked on the chat. DR25 is a type of heat shrink tubing. It's very different to your typical heat shrink that you use to make splices and stuff like that. There's multiple types of different heat shrink tubing that gets used when you're building a motorsports wiring harness.
Okay.
DR25 is used as a loom. So if you think about it, the easiest example that I can give you is if you look at anything in your house that has a cord that goes to the wall, the covering that is on the outside of that cable would be equivalent to what we're using DR25 for. And inside that cable, let's say your fan, has two prongs coming out of it. There's two cables in it, and it might be covered, or something bigger like a fridge, for example, that uses a 3-prong connector. Well, a cable is an assembly that has multiple wires in it, or it could also be an assembly of multiple cables that have multiple wires in it. So it's like inception of wires, right?
Okay.
So you have wires.
Wireception.
You have copper conductor that is insulated by an outside covering shell looming, and then when you make an assembly or a cable, that means that you're grabbing multiple wires with insulation and bundling them together into what would essentially be a harness.
Okay.
And that outside coating on your wire, if you look at the heat gun, you see that's got like that thick black coating on it.
Yeah.
There's two smaller wires inside of that are twisted together with a separator between them. and there's an outside insulation layer on top of that. And that's essentially what we're doing. You have multiple wires inside that are going directly to your 12 volt and your output on your AVCS solenoid, or your 6 wires on your throttle position and throttle body, all that stuff. You have all those wires inside of a bundle that is then covered on top of that with DR25. Mm-hmm. The reason DR25 is used is because it's not the same material, and it's not for the same use as your standard, what's referred to as polyolefin heat shrink, which is this stuff.
Yeah.
And this stuff, this is dual wall polyolefin heat shrink. Okay. And that's used for, it has a glue inside of it. So when you heat it up, if I heat it up right now, you'll see it'll seep out some glue. It'll shrink first, and then some glue is going to start coming out. You'll see like a glossy, like clear thing coming out of it. So see that it makes like a second layer?
Yeah.
So that glue basically acts as a moisture sealant, and it oozes out, and you basically put the smallest heat shrink that you can put onto a connection that you're trying to make and trying to weatherproof. And so you protect the exposed conductor or wire, whether that's a wire or a crimp terminal or whatever. You protect the exposed conductor so that the elements don't get to it. It doesn't short when it touches some other thing or whatever. Sure. So DR25 is just a loom, and it's used in place of stuff like braided looming. It's used in place of stuff like fiberglass heat resistant looming. Yeah. It's used in conjunction with other types of loom as well. You can do a DR25 base to cover your whole harness, and then on top of that, use something called HFT, or heat shrink fabric, or heat shrink fabric tubing, which looks like that.
Yeah, that stuff's cool.
DR25 has its pros and its cons. The main pros of why it's used as the main looming material is it's an elastomer. It's not polyolefin. It's a more advanced, chemically stable elastomer that is completely penetration proof of common liquids used in an engine bay.
Sure.
Or in aviation and stuff like that as well. Military use, all that stuff.
So oil, power steering fluid, brake fluid, which is really rough on shit, stuff like that.
It's rated for diesel, and if anybody's familiar with fluids that are used commonly in engines, diesel is one of the most aggressive fluids.
Yep.
So it'll hold diesel, it'll hold brake fluid, it'll hold gas, it'll hold E85, it'll even hold methanol, which is really known as really, really corrosive. So DR25 is used as the main looming because it's really chemically stable and chemically resistant to common chemicals used. It's also abrasion resistant, not abrasion proof. You can cut through it. And it's also heat resistant. So that piece of heat shrink that I just shrunk, if I put the flame right to it and I hold it there for a little bit, you'll see it literally catches fire. Look at it.
Oh yeah.
Literally catches fire. Now, if I grab a piece of DR25, it doesn't necessarily catch fire. Depending on the temperature, it'll literally just start bubbling up. After you heat it for long enough, it just kind of bubbles up.
Oh, it doesn't care about anything.
So, it immediately puts out the fire the moment I let it go. See that? So it's like fire retardant, and it just kind of bubbles up. So if you catch this inside of a fire, it'll almost protect what's inside. So that's why DR25 is used. And what was the question that somebody asked in the chat earlier? Sorry, I tend to
No, hey, rambling's fine. That's what this whole thing is about. So I was changing some sensitivity. No, okay.
Somebody asked a question earlier. Go before Josh's comment with the picture of the harness.
I mean, the big thing was having a conversation about, why would you want a motorsports wiring harness? We already kind of went over that.
Okay.
So, let's take a step back and chat about you. Okay? You don't have to name any shop names or anything like that. Let's not go into that. We all know whatever, but how did you get started into this? Well, how did you get started into cars? What's your situation? Where are you from? How did you end up in Manhattan, Kansas, doing motorsports wiring harnesses and tuning random shit?
So the journey kind of started the same as a lot of people tend to start their journey when they get really into cars. You get a car, you need the car worked on for whatever reason, whether that's like regular maintenance, repair, modifications, whatever you want to do. You run into unreliable people that just don't do the work right or don't do it in a timely manner or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get interested in like, I'm just going to do it myself, like that kind of attitude.
Yes.
And that started for me in college. In about
Austin's in here.
2012, I had my first car in college, my first car ever. It was nothing special, just a base model Mazda 3.
Sure.
And, it had some issues. It was a used car. I bought it used, and I had to get some work done on it. And then everything else after that just kind of like, I got the first wiring stuff that I got into was I wired my own car stereo. I didn't catch the car on fire. It was like all kinds of wiring. I put a radio in it. I put a sub in it, amps, speakers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of the kind of person,
How old were you when you did that?
Shoot, that was 12 years ago. So 20.
Okay.
So yeah, I wasn't that young. I've always been a gamer. It's kind of like my main thing. And now with cars, it's kind of like my preferred hobby. Gaming's kind of been relegated to a second or third position. But when I got into cars, I'm the kind of person that is really intense when I get into something. So when I get into something interests me and challenges me and I like it, I really get into it.
Yeah.
And tuning's no different, wiring's no different. I've gotten like full beans into both of those things.
So you wired up a stereo. What's the first fast car you own?
So fast to me, probably at the time the fastest
where
thing.
you would be like, this is fun car, enthusiast car. Like, what was the first one that you really?
So my first quote unquote like performance car, whatever you want to call it. The kind of the car that starts everything for you.
Yeah.
It was a 1993 Toyota Celica, blue.
Yeah, boy.
It was from a guy that was selling it. He had it pretty nice. He had repainted it like a Subaru WRC blue, and it looked really good in pictures. It was in my budget, and I still had the Mazda 3. And my friend Norman, who's my tuning mentor, I always have and will always say he's the kind of the person that really got me started into tuning. He was like, dude, we need to buy this. At this point, I had never driven a stick shift car. I had never, ever, worked a clutch, right?
Yeah,
at all.
so you didn't know what you were doing. Yeah.
And he was like, dude, you need to get this car. This car's sick. And he sent it to me, and it was like $4,000. I had the money, and I went and got it with him.
What were you doing at the time for a job?
I was a college student.
Yep. Okay, so you were unemployed and living off. Yep. Okay.
Living off the Pell Grant and all that shit,
Living off that government tea.
Yeah, and later on in life, I'm not gonna get too much into personal details, but you either get a job or you can leverage other resources available to kind of cost your own self-taught career degree kind of thing. So my career in university was land surveying. I finished that degree. I graduated. I have a degree in that. That was my first adult job was in land surveying, and it kind of got it to the point where I moved a few different places and COVID happened, and then I started working at a performance shop, and basically that's kind of what started all of this. Was me kind of taking the leap of leaving my college career that took me a long time to get and a lot of hard work and a lot of long nights to kind of just try the hobby as a business, as a living.
That jump is it's kind of terrifying when you do that.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Especially when you just put all that effort into doing something probably drastic. What'd you go to college for?
I went for land surveying.
Okay, yeah, so not even
unrelated.
This ain't even kind of related.
Yeah, unrelated. So my first fast car was fast to me was that car. That car was shit for power. It was maybe 140 horsepower.
Yeah, but you're yo!
But it had a cutout.
Yep.
It was loud as fuck.
It was making the chirp chirps.
Yeah, and it was, it was fun. It was what got me started. And
You
then
were that kid.
after that, I sold that car.
Yep.
And flipped it basically. I put a little bit of maintenance in it and made more money than what I have put in it. That doesn't happen very often with modified cars. And then I got another Celica. And this was like the Celica that's outside. Black Celica. I turboed that. I had a friend, Juan, that put a Mega Squirt ECU in it.
Sure.
And that's kind of what started my tuning journey with my own car. I started that. I blew it up multiple times. The only thing that we had available at the time was either 91, 93, and water meth injection.
Yeah.
So that's what I ran the car on. It was an eBay turbo, eBay manifold, eBay everything.
Yeah.
Modified 1cc Toyota Corolla injectors to 550cc. You know,
was this your first like foray into tuning then? Also?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's kind of what really got me passionate into the whole tuning and wiring as a complement to the tuning ECU aspect of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically it. And that happened in 2013.
Yeah.
So basically I started tuning a year after I got that other car.
Yeah.
And I've been messing with friends' cars. It kind of snowballed into...
That's how it always happens.
Yeah.
With almost every tuner, it was they screwed around with their own car. And that was a catalyst for usually a few different things. It's usually somebody either screwed their car up and they're like, this is dumb, I know I can do it better, I'm smart. Mm-hmm. Or they were too poor to pay a tuner, mm-hmm. and they just learned to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And it always starts with your own car, and then somebody else is like, oh shit, you tuned your car, hey, can you tune mine?
Yeah.
And then it turns out okay for what you think is okay as a tune at that point.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, have my boy tune your car. You're like, okay, I guess. So you do another friends, and like, yeah, it networks out from there, and then there's so much tuning business you don't know how to see straight. Mm-hmm. That's every tuner has that same story.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it went, and I never really had customers until after a while of me like starting to mess with my car, but like multiple years. But I had been messing with friends' cars.
Yeah.
Friends that either put the same ECU in, or they put like a older Haltech Sprint 500 or something like that. Like at the time it was like mid 2010s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of got started into that. I tinkered with some reflashing of some stuff using ECU flash, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of was always there, and it was always my interest, and I really got involved with like car stuff. And then I took the job as a land surveyor full time. And with that money, I bought, my first car being a 1993 Toyota Celica, which is the one that has the flip up still.
Yeah.
It's like the de facto standard Carlos Sainz.
What was the ST205 or
so
something?
the one I first got was the 185, quote unquote.
Okay, yeah.
So that was the original Castrol, like
that
Carlos
was the
Sainz.
Square flat headlight front, and then it went to the rounded headlight front. Yeah, okay.
Yep. So that was my first car. So I always had the thing where I wanted to get, after I turboed my SD204, which is the other one that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Which the GT4 will be the chassis code SD205.
Okay.
When I got that one and I got really into it, I wanted an SD205, but they never came to the United States.
Yeah.
They only came to Canada. I was a almost graduated from college student. I didn't have the money to buy a $15,000 car from 1994.
Yeah.
So when I graduated college and I took a job in Maryland, I was not far from you guys. I was in Germantown, working out of Rockville. I got the chance to buy a relatively inexpensive ST185 from 1990, which was pretty rare because that's the only year that came narrow body, which you would think it's like undesirable, but in reality it's like it looks on the outside very much like a base model GT, but it is all-wheel drive, right-hand drive, turbocharged from the factory with the same engine that the Turbo MR2 came with.
That's cool.
So it's a very, very much a sleeper, very unassuming.
Yeah.
And that car I moved with when I moved to Iowa. And then I sold it over there during COVID. Shit was going down for everybody. So I was kind of like, I don't need to have 2 cars in my house. I'm just gonna sell this car and get another car at another time.
Sure.
So, but yeah, after I moved to Iowa, it was kind of like I'm working surveying full time, but I can tune cars and I know my way around like a wiring harness, and so I had the opportunity to basically work full time for a shop doing that, and that's what I took on, and I did that from 2020 until late 2022.
Yeah.
So almost 3 years there, and it was a good time. It was a good learning experience of working in the actual industry.
Sure.
Meeting a bunch of people that are way more knowledgeable than you are in a lot of aspects. Realizing that you know a lot more than people that have been in the industry for a long time as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eye-opening in very many ways.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where you realize that, like, dang, like I did a lot for a lot of people, including the shop.
Yep.
At the time, it was a shop that was like only focused on Subarus.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I came in that they realized, like, hey, we could use this guy and like actually expand our business into a more common market locally, which is like V8s and other makes and models.
That area has an assload of Subarus for no apparent reason. Though,
yeah,
so.
It's Midwest. I mean, it's the
but
weather.
Really, yeah, I guess, but it's wild how much that's actually grown.
So, it kind of naturally progressed into people just looking for me, coming to the shop for me, and I kind of had the realization of like, hey, maybe I can just like do this on my own. Let me give it a try. And well, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. So we got this sweet little shop in Kansas, and you're mostly doing. You're basically just doing wiring and tuning here.
Yep.
And I know you're really trying to make a push to do a lot more of the wiring.
Yep.
Which is awesome because that's exactly what we needed out of the situation.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know who to even talk to. Like what a lot of people don't realize is they can call you and they can go, hey, I've got an Entron this, a Turbo Smart that, I got a PDM this, yada, 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 and I'm putting it in this. I'm going to need a wiring harness for that. Mm-hmm. And you can walk them through that.
Yep.
You can walk them through, okay, this is what I need. I need to know all of these things, and I can build that for you.
Yeah.
And that is, you don't, like, the amount of knowledge that's in your head with that is crazy. And I can't put this into words how priceless that knowledge base is. And so if you are ever putting together a race car, I implore you, this is the way to do it. And it really is any damn race car too. It's not the beauty of what we're doing. Yeah, it's in a Subaru chassis, but this could be any chassis. Mm-hmm. Like if this wasn't a GC, it could be a frickin' Ferrari. It doesn't matter,
Yep.
It doesn't really matter. It's the concepts all go to one basic concept at that point, and that's one of the nice things about it is everything gets super basic. Yep. And then you're doing things like motorsports can. So if you want to just like my new ECU Master Dash, it's just gonna plug in.
Mm-hmm. Essentially.
Yeah, and I mean we're looking at a button box for the wheel.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's gonna be running CAN.
Yep.
And it's gonna just plug in.
Yep.
But then you have like the sensors. You have to know which connectors and all that nonsense you need, and that can get really crazy. Save yourself the heartache. Just talk to somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. And yeah, it ain't cheap. I'm not gonna lie. It ain't cheap, but it is worth every penny.
Yeah.
It is worth every penny. What do we got? Josh, you should see some bits from my car around there somewhere. E-Gate, Bosch, throttle body, each. It all probably looks just like
box.
mine. Oh, I see a box on the floor. That's probably all your shit, actually.
Yeah. So it's nicely tucked away there, safe, away from everything.
There's all your goodies. So, so now you're here killing it with that. Do you think there's anything people overlook? Like, a particular thing that people overlook with wiring quite a bit?
Yeah, it's the thing I've found the most common, with new people that are interested in using my services for wiring and whatnot is connecting point A to point B is the ultimate goal of wiring.
Yeah.
Just like when you're building an exhaust, just connecting the turbo to your tailpipe is the goal.
Yeah.
Now, how do you go about it depends on your wants and your needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that's really hard to explain and convey. So the simplest analogy that I have that I use pretty often is, do you want your exhaust and your charge piping and all that stuff to be nicely TIG welded back purged, or
Yeah.
do you care to just have like MIG weld aluminized tubing on everything? Because ultimately everything's gonna like perform the same, quote unquote. You know, like it's gonna do its job. If you make a charge pipe out of aluminum, like aluminized stainless, like aluminized steel tubing,
yes,
it'll connect the turbo to the next charge pipe the same as an aluminum tube or a titanium tube or whatever. But it's up to what the customer wants, what they want to afford, and the reason why they want what they want. Like they may want aluminum because it dissipates more heat and it's lighter. They might want titanium because it looks nice and it's also light. Or they might just not have the money for it and they just want like an aluminized tube that they can powder coat later or paint with a spray can.
Or they don't know at all.
Or they don't know.
You run into that a lot of times too. They don't know at all.
Yeah.
And I know, again, this seems like it's a basic concept. There's so much more to it. And every minute I'm here, I'm realizing that. So one of the things we were talking about is you're doing something called a concentric twist on the engine side harness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that is?
So concentric twist is a method of bundling the wires together.
Yeah.
And what it basically means is that you're wrapping the wires around in layers, kind of like building your own onion.
Yeah.
You're wrapping the wires around in layers on top of wires, on top of wires, on top of wires until you can run all the wires that you need to run through a loom. So essentially what you're building is a huge cable that has a bunch of conductors inside of it. And the purpose of doing concentric twist is the primary focus is flexibility.
Yeah.
The harness doesn't have to make like really tight turns that puts strain on some wires more than others.
Yeah.
And then the second purpose is having it be compact. You want to bundle the wires together one way or another so that they're tightly bundled together so that you can run them through the DR25, which then makes the whole harness very compact. And it also makes it fluid resistant, and it also enables you to actually create a fully sealed motorsports harness.
Yes.
Which yours is going to be probably like mostly partially sealed because we're still retaining a bunch of OEM connectors.
Yeah.
And there's way to modify some connectors, like you saw what we did on your throttle body,
Yep.
and we made that fully sealed. So the other side is going to be fully sealed. So nothing's going to get into your throttle body wiring, which is, if you think about it, it's a safety concern because if you short some wires and the throttle sticks open, then you're revving all the way to the moon and then you can crash. Yeah. So you can pick and choose your battles when you're building a harness like that, or you can go all out. The thing that you got to keep in mind is it takes more materials and more time to do a fully sealed harness.
Time is money.
And time is money, correct. So you can make a harness that takes you 50 to 60 hours to make and wire up a whole car with just laying flat wire all the way across, and like you want to tape it together like the OEMs do, just tape it together. Who cares, right?
Yep.
And you take very little time doing it. But if you want to do a more involved harness, like a concentric twist harness, motorsports wiring harness, then you're looking at a lot more hours, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4 times the labor.
Yes.
And you know, I my labor rate is not very expensive. I don't think at $100 an hour. Just being upfront.
Personally, yeah. So let's say you charge $100 an hour.
Yeah. So
I think your labor rate is extremely fair for what you do.
And if a harness takes me 200 hours to design, plan, build, and install on the car.
Yep.
Sometimes cars come with pre-existing harnesses, pre-existing stuff that I have to take out that goes into that labor.
Yep.
Sometimes they just want to add more parts to it, so that adds mechanical labor, which is a different rate. But basically, if the wiring harness from front to back for the whole car takes me 200 hours to do, then I'm going to have to charge you 200 times 100, which is 20 grand.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it takes just for the labor. Materials is going to be another few grand.
Yeah.
So realistically speaking, if you want to wire a car from scratch, all mil-spec wiring, all sealed, concentric twisted, like a lot of what you see on the internet with very high-end shops that make bespoke builds for racing, you're probably going to look at between 20 to 30 grand on the cheap side. There's shops that charge way more for less, and it's because their rates are way higher because their overhead is a lot higher. So realistically speaking, it can vary, but you're looking for a car like yours. If we were gonna do it at full rate, all mil spec, concentric twisted, and it was just me that was doing it, it would be about 20 to 30 grand to do.
Yeah.
You know, and
mine's simple. Like I don't have AC. I don't have a lot of. It's make a Subaru run.
Yep.
Is really what that is.
Yep.
It's nothing crazy.
Yep. And that's why, you know, given the timeline that we have almost 2 weeks, not even, to basically wire the car from scratch, front to back. Dylan's here helping me and learning on the matter.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be able to do everything on the car. Once I'm not there, he's gonna be able to fix anything. And if he's not sure what to do, he can just ring me up and I can help him out. You know, but that accelerates the process. It doesn't lower the cost. Because if he was my employee, I would still have to pay him.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper.
I get it. All that's doing is shorten time.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's hard to, when you hear that the first time, you're like, holy shit, that is a lot for wiring. But then you really get a concept of what it takes to put it together, and it's not.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. And if you do it right, it should be the last harness you ever do.
Yep. And if you do it the way that we're doing it with your car as well, even if you lose part of the harness or all of the harness on one side of the engine or both sides, the whole harness inside the whole car connecting to the ECU and the PDMs is not lost.
Yes.
It's just whatever gets damaged, which can be repaired. Like Dylan is going to have the skills coming out of here to basically the car catches fire, and you lose the whole right hand side of the harness. You can basically buy all the materials and use the burnt harness as measurements, and you get all the measurements for the harness, everything, and he can literally just rebuild it.
Yeah, I could probably rebuild it in like 30 minutes. So, kidding. That was a massive joke. I feel like I'm at school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's, again, it's not that I didn't know
I think
nothing.
it was funny. You said the other night, he's like, I think I learned more about wiring in the first couple hours I've been here than the entire time I've ever been doing automotive.
yeah. It's a lot of skill craft to it. You know, there's the way you work stuff and the way you do things. Obviously, Sam's a expert in his field craft, and so the way he does things, it's just like, that's interesting. I've either done it like that or I've done it opposite of that, and the way you're doing it just looks so much easier. And so, no, it's been fun. It's been a really good time, and it's definitely something that is a very valuable skill. And going back on it, like, again, the price to realize of how much time and effort and planning and everything going into something like this, when you see it in person, you go, oh man, like that makes all the sense in the world now. But I'm overly excited for not only having, learning the skill craft of this and being able to continue it forward, but just the excitement of Boogey just being that much better. The car is going to be that much better, and for me, that's the big excitement thing.
The car is going to be nuts, dude.
Hopefully.
Yeah. The car, in theory, should be nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to have cruise control now, so, we can hit a button and he can just... It's just cruise control.
The magic of drive-by-wire. That's another thing. Oh my god, don't get me started on that.
580 Club.
Yeah, man.
That's what it's about. Crimping ain't easy, he says. That's right. It ain't.
Shout outs to Joel at Race Spec. He says that. He has a t-shirt that says that I have it.
Crimping ain't easy?
Crimping ain't easy. No.
Man, I had a great question for you. I'm trying to figure out where the hell it went. So you've been doing a lot with Austin. I know Austin from the internet with a badass bug eye, and he does Optima.
Yep.
So you guys have been doing the Optima. What do they call that?
Ultimate Streetcar.
Streetcar, yeah. Ultimate Ultima Streetcar Challenge, and then that's Ultima Batteries, I think is who puts it on, right?
Yeah, Optima does it.
Optima.
Yeah.
So it's Optima Streetcar,
It's
Ultimate Streetcar,
Challenge.
Ultimate Streetcar. Okay.
Yeah.
So they do the Optima series.
Yep.
Ultimate Streetcar Challenge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, I always thought that was cool because, like, it does autocross, road course. Isn't there there's a car show aspect to it?
So there's a category that all the classes except Outlaw participate in, which is design and engineering. So they rate the car against all the other cars in the event of how they're built, what they've done to them. So essentially, you get points the more modified the car is.
Yeah.
And you have to follow the rules of still keeping it a street car. So things like having HVAC and air conditioning.
Yeah.
It gives you more points.
Street car challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
So it gives you points. You have to have all the lights working on the car, all headlights, all taillights, all turn signals, parking lights, everything. So that's like rule. Unless you're like,
that's like, yeah.
So,
I'm sitting here trying to figure out how Boogey would fit into that, and they would literally be like, "Go home." We wouldn't even make it through that. Let me guess. That's like one of the first things you guys do too, right?
It happens probably within the first day, most of the events, sometimes the second day. When they do it at SEMA, it's like the second day does design and engineering. Tech is technically where you have to have all those lights and all that stuff. But then you do road course, you do autocross, you do what they call speed stop. And that's basically, you do like a 8th mile drag race, but that 8th mile drag race is turn 180. So you do like 300 feet forward, then you have to take this sweeping turn, and then you go into a kink, and then you have to stop inside of a stop box. If you hit the cone, it's a DNF. So the box is like covered around, it's squared off by cones.
Yeah.
So you have to, it tests your acceleration, it tests like side G's and grip on the tires, and then it tests the brakes all in one full swoop. And it's really fun to watch, especially in the SEMA show, because you have all these people watching around you, and it's like, drag racing, if it's got one thing for it, is it's a really good spectator sport.
It really is.
And that's
it's very easy to understand. You can see the whole race front to back.
Yep.
It's even people with short attention spans can watch a whole race and not get too bored with it.
And it's essentially a drag race for track cars.
Yeah.
And then after that, you do a road rally. So you have to basically put license inside of a envelope, and then you have to go to a point and then come back, and you have to not get stopped by cops.
Okay.
Oh man!
So if you get
straight to jail,
if you get pulled over, they'll come to you with your license, but you lose the road rally points.
Yeah.
So that's basically the gist of it as far as like competition goes. There's different classes and whatnot, just like Gridlife, but yeah.
Yeah. So he's been pretty, like, you guys' program just in general has been pretty successful.
Yeah.
Like, you guys have done really well on that, and you got to build a pretty damn complete car to make that work.
Yes.
This new iteration of the car, it looks fantastic. That's the other car you guys have been seeing in some of our pictures.
Yeah.
That thing looks great. So is he ever gonna, I would love to come do Optima with him, but I don't think that's gonna go over well.
I think you get tossed into Outlaw with
straight to jail.
I'm pretty sure we'd go to jail.
Yeah. But you think we're ever gonna be able to talk him into coming over to Gridlife?
I mean, I want him to.
That looks like a frickin' street mod car if I've ever seen one. I mean, we gotta fix some of the aero, but we'll get them there.
I mean, yeah, like what's on it right now is kind of to just fit inside the constraints of the Optima series.
Yeah, they got some really your wing annoyed the shit out of me, but now that I understand why he has to have it that way, I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, I really do want him to go to Gridlife. Maybe that's something that we'll take on next year, because
Austin.
Ultimately, the goal for him, I think, is to get into global time attack and get his main goal is time attack.
Or are you just punning there?
I was trying to say optimally.
Optimally?
Yeah.
Optimally?
Yeah, I was trying to use Optima.
He was right there. I can see it he's mouthing it, trying to make the word work. That's so funny.
But yeah, his car is here right now, and we're basically He came over a few times. We essentially gutted the whole thing. It has nothing in it anymore. And we're basically rebuilding it back to Optima standards. But we're doing motorsports wiring everywhere. We're doing aftermarket ABS. We're doing new wiring harnesses everywhere. All the things. So we're basically going from the ground up, which is something that he's been wanting to do with the car. It's been pretty difficult, me working at another shop and him being halfway across the country, it's not optimal, but now that we're now that that was smooth. But now that I'm here and it's a lot closer for him, then we just decided to just pull the trigger and just start doing this.
No, he wants to do everything from what he's saying in the chat. So he's in the chat right now, and I like it's a great chassis for it. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see you guys out there. I think the car with not too much effort would be in the ballpark of what you would need for a street mod car. Mm-hmm. What turbo is he running these days?
So
what's his whole setup actually?
We're running a IAG. Now we switched over to an IAG engine, and we're using a 750 based engine with a few things sprinkled here and there. Yeah. Just kind of like optioned out to our choices.
Yeah.
And port and polished heads, 272 cams. We have a ETS turbo kit with a Garrett G35900 on it. Injector dynamics injectors. We're using an M-Tron ECU on that. We've been using that for since 2021, I want to say. Yeah. It's using right now it was using the cheapest, smallest M-Tron, the SL4, and it's been doing really well with it. Yeah. So that goes to show how good the ECU actually is. Yeah. Where the base model, that would be like the equivalent to an Elite 1500 or like a Link Extreme or something like that. It's like the bare
Link
smallest.
Extreme for extremely limited on what you can do.
I don't think they have cruise control though.
It's basically like the entry level ECU. It's kind of like the gateway drug. Yeah. So
oh man,
you guys are
all need sleep.
You guys are terrible. But yeah, we've been using that, and we've been pretty successful with it, and the car's been great. It was just kind of time to just go a step further with it.
Yeah. No, it's in teardown mode right now. There's quite a few pretty badass parts on there. Yeah. That I wish we had.
Shout out to TSS Fab.
Yeah. Shout out to TSS Fab. I'm not gonna mention any names. William. Wait, we need a front subframe like whoa. I got no other like whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if those listening want to do me a solid, just start blowing up TSS Fab social. Help Boogey. I don't know. Let Boogey cook. I don't know. We'll come up with something. D. Alex Butler's asking, will it be competitive with the Evos? Is there a bunch of Evos in the Optima?
There hasn't been Evos in Optima in a few years.
Yeah, actually. There's no Evos in Optima.
Once the Subaru started showing up, the Evos went away.
Austin's talking about a sequential.
I don't know about that.
He says sequential is coming.
I don't know about that. I don't know what he's talking about.
All right, well, Mr. Keys,
you're going to track mod then.
We need to have a conversation before you do that because there is it could. We need to talk. All right. There's ways. All right. We have plans. Maybe you should be a part of these plans.
Yes.
So don't spend any money. I'm not afraid of track, but you sure as fuck better be. Andy and Ronnie killing Optima was forever ago, dude. They haven't been around in a while. RS Motors.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time since there's.
Well, yeah, because they went all in on Gridlife.
So I'll tell you what, I have not seen an Evo since I've been involved in Optima, and I started being involved in Optima in 2021
Yeah.
with Preston and Bob Folkstead with their C10 race truck that I tuned on Holly.
Yeah.
And it was basically like a 1980s C10 with
Bunch of bald eagles in the bed.
like a
Austin,
7-liter.
It's fucking Teslas and Porsches.
Yeah, it's that's basically what it is now. It's Corvettes, Teslas, and Porsches. But yeah, been involved since then. Tuned their truck. Then they built a crazy Fox body, the Foxzilla with the 7.3 Godzilla in it. I wired that and tuned that. That's also on M-Tron. And there's Austin's car with M-Tron. Basically, like, we're the only guys running M-Tron in the series.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably about to be in Gridlife. Maybe there's somebody else.
I think I might be the only one or one of the only ones, but I'm definitely the loudest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Austin got actually the loudest car in the property Spirit Award.
Oh, he wasn't talking about the car.
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay.
The car's also loud. The car is also loud, but I am like literally a loud person.
Yeah.
There's no avoiding me. Oh man. And 1,000 horsepower GTRs he's got to deal with.
But aside from, motorsports wiring and whatnot, something that we're starting to dive into is kind of like the OEM integration side of things to try to adapt standalones to cars that don't normally have a standalone option on them, or if they do, it's like a really expensive version, kind of like Motex and stuff like that.
Yeah. Especially using an M-Tron, which is a little cheaper than a Motec, but to be perfectly honest, it's more optioned.
Yes. Most people that use Motec end up using like a GPR package, and GPR packages don't hold a candle up to the base firmware on M-Tron.
Yeah.
That's beside beta firmwares and custom firmwares and stuff that there is available to certain people on M-Tron, but just the base firmware that comes, in
when
the
do we
ECU,
get into that stuff?
the base firmware that comes in the ECU is basically like a fully optioned out GPR package with then some stuff. So it's a lot better from the ground up. Fueling is like nothing I've ever worked with and tuned and whatnot. Like, I know it sounds like glazing and whatnot, but like reality is I haven't limited myself to being a cop tuner. I haven't limited myself to being like I started with a standalone. My journey started with a Megasquirt.
Yeah.
So,
which is the worst.
Yeah, so I started bottom of the barrel, cheapest ECU available, standalone ECU.
Yeah.
And I've worked my way
I've
up.
seen a total of 2 cars. I've heard of hundreds of cars trying to run on Megasquirt. I've seen a total of 2 in history ever actually run.
Yeah, I can make yours run with Megasquirt, no big deal. But
And Tron would be pissed.
we're not doing that.
Yeah,
that's not what we're trying to do.
I'm nailing
with
this
the car.
back. We've decided we're running Megasquirt.
Dude.
Oh my god. That'd be the funniest thing ever. We 3D print out a fake one. So it kind of looked right, and mail it back. We have decided we're running Megasquirt.
But yeah, we're starting to get into the OEM integration side of things. We're working with our friend Mitch on that, and he's developing a product that's basically going to allow us to integrate not just M-Tron, but any other ECU that any other tuner wants to choose for their build, or their customers or whatnot. And we're starting that with the S1000 that Austin has now, and he's driving that in Optima right now, and he has it over in California, and that has the prototype plug-and-play M-Tron for the S1000 AP2. And
cool.
AP2 S2000s, if you're familiar with them.
It's drive-by-wire and all that.
It's drive-by-wire. It has CAN bus in it. It's the only version of the S1000 that has CAN bus. And so there's very limited options as far as ECUs go. As far as I know, it's Motec, and it used to be AM Infinity.
Yes.
And since Holly bought AM, that's gone. So basically AP2s, anybody that has a modified AP2 just tunes the AP2 on K-Tuner.
Yes.
Or they retrofit AP1 everything into the AP2, including the ABS, including dash, including ECU, including wiring, everything. So they basically take the AP2, throw it in the trash, and put an AP1 everything in the car.
Yep.
So we're trying to make a product that is within a budget, not a final price, but we're shooting for the $3,000 range, and that's going to include M-Tron SL. I haven't chosen yet if we're going to use SL4 or SL8. That would be a difference of about $300 in cost.
Sure.
But the SL8 allows us for people that want to do drag cars, but we might have those as an option. But basically, what we're trying to do is M-Tron, wideband controller, plug and play harness, CAN bus integration for about $3,000.
Ain't bad.
And it would essentially be, you remove your driver's side kick panel, take your stock ECU out, and mount with a whole like aluminum panel and everything, mount the ECU and everything in that spot, and just plug it in.
I'm gonna throw something out here that you really need to do. Okay, you just need to do it because nobody else is doing it, and you would make a killing. I would sell the fuck out of it. Okay, you need to make a 2015 and newer plug and play M-Tron that we can also add port injection.
I already do that.
Okay, you need to make a plug and play, ready to go. This is how much this kit costs, so I can just send them to you when you sell it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put that together.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can talk to Graham. I actually made him so the whole combination is I have two different products. Mm-hmm. Graham has the harness that is one half of the product because he's savvy enough to figure out the other side because he already has a Boom Slang, originally a M150 plug and play harness.
Cute.
So he's gonna make that work. We talked about it. I gave him all the pinouts and all that stuff that he's gonna need for all that stuff. But basically, it would be like an 08 Plus, not just 2015. It would be like an 08 Plus plug and play intake manifold harness that plugs into the stock square plug.
I'm talking about the FAs.
Oh, you're talking about FAs.
FA specifically. I don't
okay.
get there are options for 08 Plus. I'm talking about FA.
Okay.
They need a way they can add port injection.
Okay.
Okay. It's a clusterfuck, but you need a powerful enough ECU to be able to pull that sort of shit off.
So I have a working theory.
I like working theories. This is good.
I have a working theory on how to make the FA work with M-Tron because the detail is it's direct injection.
Yes.
So you need some way of controlling the direct injection, and at this moment in time, M-Tron doesn't offer a direct injection box driver controller. That might change in the near future, and if that does, then it's just a matter of getting a very brave soul to send me their car and just have it done here.
I'll invent you souls.
So, but for right now, I have a working theory that I just need a car and some money to test it on. Mm-hmm. And it would essentially work with an ECU that's already available and works. And we know does already direct injection for M-Tron.
Yeah.
So if there was somebody listening to the podcast or somebody knows somebody else that is really trying to party with an FA and just needs an ECU solution, like the car side of things is already sorted. 2015 WRX is the same as 2015 STI.
Yeah.
M-Tron has that sorted. It already works.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting the engine running.
Yes. Which is kind of the important part.
Yes.
Even a DI delete would be an option. Yeah, but honestly, I wouldn't want to see DI go away because DI has a ton of advantages.
Yes.
So I wouldn't want to see it go away until you really start. There's going to come a point where direct injection at some horsepower level starts to become a serious problem.
There is, and I've been working on a project with a close friend of mine in Puerto Rico, tuning a Mark 6 GTI.
Okay.
Those are direct injection only.
Yes.
Pretty commonly, they get port injection added through even the stock ECU because the Europeans had that as an option.
Yes.
They come like that in Europe, so the ECU is the same, so the provisions are already there. You just got to wire it up. And then do a custom tune for it. But that GTI essentially got the DI system deleted as a test.
Yes.
Because the ECU that is available for that is completely plug and play and within the budget of that project, within the scope of the project, is a Megasquirt based ECU. And Megasquirt doesn't have direct injection at all. It doesn't even have drive-by-wire at this point. So the ECU is
only the best.
The ECU itself is a Megasquirt based ECU with a bunch of modules added to it through means of subboards and stuff.
Okay.
All enclosed inside of an aluminum case. and they sell it. They're the ones that carry it and all that stuff. I have exclusivity with it over in Puerto Rico, and basically, my working theory with direct injection was, hey, if you do DI delete, you're going to have more problems than solutions. You're going to create hot spots in the motor, this, and that. You might
it was designed to have that fuel there.
Correct. So the only right way to do it is to physically completely delete it by plugging the holes where the injectors go through, like welding the heads and stuff like that.
Yep.
And we're testing what happens if you don't do any of that, and that the only thing that you do is you take a T1 race DI delete kit for a Gallardo or a Huracan or an R8.
Yeah.
And you take those 10 plugs that come with the kit and you only put 4 in the motor and block off the pump because it's the same as the V10s.
Yeah.
And just run the ECU on it. And so far, it's on a Garrett GTX 3076.
Yep.
Running 10.3 at 136 on 35 pounds of boost.
So it's moving out.
Yep. It's front wheel drive.
Does it drive decent though?
It's pretty decent. I would say it has its little, things that we've had to like really mess around with to get it.
That engine was designed to have DI in it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say it's inherently a problem with DI. We really haven't had any oh my god, it's knocking so easy. Now we're running 1 ethanol on it.
Yeah.
For racing purposes, ID 1700s, dual 525 pumps on it, so overfueled. And yeah, it's doing really well, better than we expected. It's just a piston and rod motor essentially. And yeah, I would say I agree with you on the DI aspect. I would love to keep the DI on the WRX up to a certain use. Once you start saying, hey, IAG wants to develop a 1,000 horsepower WRX F820 engine, and we want to drag race with it, at that point I would just say...
Personally, I don't think it's going to be the 15 to 21 WRXs. It's going to be the 22 plus WRXs.
Okay.
Those guys are... There isn't an option. Like they just said in the chat, the right answer is you go trade your damn car and get an effing STI, and there's a beaten path to 1,000 wheel. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're going to an EJ. That's easy. We can do that. Yep. The new cars there isn't. Okay, and if you want to party with a VB, you're on a WRX. Mm-hmm. We're basically forced to have to figure it out now.
Yep. So for those guys, honestly, I would say there would be a point where deleting DI makes sense, and at that point, I'm sure IAG will hop on that and make products really quickly for that. But I would say for 90% of people that are going to modify to that extent, they're probably going to be tracking the car, not really drag racing. And the 10% of people that are going to be drag racing a VB, they're going to be already doing an STI trans swap, etc., etc. For those people, it would absolutely make sense to just do a DI delete. Yeah. Because you take away potential problems. Yeah. Once you start getting into the really high EGT realms of high boost, high horsepower, the DI injectors just create more problems than they fix. Yeah. And yeah, once you start lowering compression and doing all that stuff, it just makes sense to just go back to what is known to work. Yes. Which is just port injection. You end up deleting VVT and all that stuff, AVCS. Yeah. You end up doing all that stuff when you're building a drag car, because drag cars are better when they're simple. Right?
Yep. No, I agree.
So in that regard, that would be the only...
It's going to be the road course guy that would really want to go into that.
Correct.
But I think that, the new chassis actually, even though it's huge, it isn't much heavier, and everybody is saying it's extraordinarily good. Yeah. So it's coming. Yeah. There's going to be those guys. So yeah. Have a couple of questions here. I just got asked, what ECU Master PDM are you running? The 16, the 24, the 12. We have a...
we have both the 16 and the 24.
Yep.
So we're running 2.
Yep. We have the standard 16. There's a Autosport version, which is a little bit more powerful than the standard 16. It's also about $700 more expensive.
It's crazy expensive.
But it comes with the mil-spec bulkhead connectors, like Autosport connectors and stuff like that. And the interesting thing about that PDM is the big power connector is unique to ECU Master. They have an exclusive Autosport connector.
That's cool.
Because what they call a plan form, which is the layout of the connector, nobody else has it. and the only people that have it right now is RaceSpec and ECU Master. But it's I've used it. It's great. It's better than the standard 16. It actually has 40 amp outputs. It has two 40 amp outputs on the Autosport.
So Josh is asking, well, that's 40 inputs. What do you need 40 for?
Cruise control.
Duh.
Yeah.
No, we actually there's quite a few reasons for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a couple that are getting wired up that
Yeah, do you think?
that I don't think I'm
I got
ready.
a very important question when you come back.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to introduce to the world of things. This is kind of going to be a trick up the sleeve, so to speak. Might not be used on the car right away, but there's a couple things that are getting wired up to be in place. But the PDM is essentially, both of them are essentially controlling the brakes, the parking lights, the clutch. I mean, not the clutch, but literally everything in the car. And so we just didn't want to be limited on things. And so it's better to have it and not need it rather than need it and not have it.
And the thing is, just one of them made it very limiting.
It was close with just the 16. So essentially two, we're separating them. So the 16 is going to basically be for the powertrain. And then the 24 is going to be chassis stuff with some other stuff mixed into it. And so this allows us to, kind of power up everything in the car and kind of get everything that we need going.
Driver cooling and other stuff like that being added, like having more. Maybe.
Yeah, so
let's say if we did want to add driver cooling, or let's say we're going to have enough expansion to be able to do things.
Correct. So if I wanted to put Dewey in a cool shirt, that option's there. If we wanted to add something like a tank heater for the dry sump tank to heat up the oil before we start the car, that will probably go in. If we wanted to add in some like RGB lights inside the car on a switch.
Electric water pump?
Yeah. An electric water pump. I mean, there's so many options.
Electric power steering.
Yeah, you stop giving all the good stuff away.
Active Aero.
Yeah, we can't run Active Aero.
Shh. No. What they don't. You can do whatever you want till you get caught.
Yeah. No, we're within the rules on the stuff that I have kind of planned for. I'm definitely within the rules of our class. I find it much more fun to kind of be within the rules and make everyone scratch
by no
their
means
heads.
are we going to. No.
Yeah, there's no
we
point.
would never cheat, but if anybody has been following Gridlife long enough, they know Play in the Gray is what that entire damn series is. So.
Yeah, so it's just having the options to have the room down the road. Again, heater on the dry sump tank to heat up the oil, cool shirt for Dewey, dumb lights if we want them. Maybe wiring a fan inside the car for something. Like, who knows? The options are there. And so, again, I'd rather have the options than be limited on what we are doing.
Okay.
I don't know if you mentioned anything about this, but also the other thing is like isolating the uses for the different PDMs. Like we're using one for the engine and one for the chassis.
Yeah. Yep.
That also like distributes the load evenly. And even though the PDMs have a maximum current rating, it's best if you just don't run them at that maximum current
Correct.
rating.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of saving money.
So, a very important question.
What's that?
You're from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Okay. If there's anything I know about a Puerto Rican, I guarantee you know somebody within. You either are related to somebody or you know somebody closely who does a sick Bridgeport on a rotary.
I hate to disappoint you.
There's no way you don't have rotary people in your freaking immediate circle.
So I know people that are into it, but I was never into them myself. So even though I had the opportunity of getting really closely acquainted with people,
so if I were to go to you and say, "Hey man, I really need a sick port job on my rotary," you would know who to talk to, though.
Yeah, I can think of a few people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can think of a few people. They're not necessarily close to me, but I can think of a few people.
But you would know who to get a hold of.
Yeah.
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 Like, I haven't a clue. Some of that is well, I'm from Michigan, so
Yeah.
yeah.
But I that's something that I never really like got into myself.
Really, rotaries were never.
No, I wasn't captivated by them.
Man,
Like they sound cool and everything.
the island loves rotaries, my guy.
Yeah, I know.
They're about that.
I know. I
Yep.
know. It's just like for me, it was never really like a thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I was more into the import stuff, like 4-cylinder, 4-bangers, turbos, Hondas, like Toyotas.
Well, what's really funny is he just basically said, I'm more into the import stuff, and nothing is more import than an effing Mazda 13B rotary.
Oh,
and it's so like ingrained into the culture that you basically look at it as a domestic. You see it like a Chevy.
Yeah. Puerto Rican domestic car is a 1970s K70 Corolla with a rotary in it. Or a 1980 Suzuki Samurai with a rotary.
With a rotary.
Or a Starlet.
Or a Starlet.
Or a
with
Starlet.
rotary in it.
With a rotary in it.
Yeah.
I will say those Starlets are fast.
They are insanely fast.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
That's why we need a Justy.
Yeah, but with a rotary?
No, with a EJ.
With an EJ, like a terrible idea EJ?
Yeah.
An NA EJ that we spin to fucking 15,000.
Something, dude. We need a Justy.
Fucking Austin. Austin says you're a Mexican, but that's not true because
No.
you're Puerto Rican.
We Austin and I have talked about this a lot. He literally just does that because it plucks a string and it's not a race thing. It's more of like a culture thing. The cultures are so different. And
Yes.
the fact that he goes like, oh, do you have tacos in Puerto Rico? That's like, cabrón, we have mofongo, puñeta. Like, it's not tacos, you know? And yeah, but we're close like that.
Yeah.
He fucks with me like that sometimes.
Damn it, Austin. All right, man. Is there, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Well, you could hit me up on... I'm probably out of all the social medias, I'm most active on Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's because it's the easiest to...
It's literally the worst place for you to.
Yeah.
You're pretty easy to find on Facebook, I will say that. You
Yep.
tend to be in all of the major Subaru groups and poking
Yep.
around and stuff.
Yeah. So, Facebook, I have the business page, Dialed In Motorsports. Just look for the little blue spark plug logo. Instagram, Dialed In Motorsports as well. I would prefer if you don't hit me up on the personal one.
Yeah.
But a lot of people know me on that, and it's just Samuel Hubin.
Yeah.
And yeah, my business, you can look it up on Google in Manhattan, Kansas, and it'll show up.
Yeah. Just Dialed In Motorsports. It's
Yep.
easy enough to find.
And we have dialedinmotorsports.net as well.
Yep.
As a website.
There you go. Dialedinmotorsports.net.
Yes, not .com.
.net?
.net.
.net.
Like OG.
OG dot F in net.
Yeah, that's how you knew you were legit in the 2000s. You had a .net website. That meant serious.
Yes. So, well, there you go. I think that's the show. I had a good time. Anything you want to add?
We will 100% will have cruise control in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why we would, but we're going to. just cause we can.
We're coming for you, Super K. We got cruise control.
Yeah.
You know Graham's gonna use that, and it's gonna be that's how he's gonna limit me from like my straightaway speeds.
No,
He's gonna bake in cruise control to chill me out.
No, we have other ways to do that.
Yeah, dicks.
No, it's gonna be a good time. Stay tuned to all of this. We're gonna be kind of leading up to Midwest Fest. Hopefully, there's a lot to work to still to be done to get there. But I think we've decided that we're just gonna kind of tease a lot of this stuff heading into Midwest Fest. And if you come to Midwest Fest, stop by the booth, come check out the car, come say hi, and pick our brains about it. And after that, I mean, hopefully we can squeeze some more things into the car and kind of progress this car. As we said a lot last year, not progressing the car might as well be standing still. So.
Well, standing still might as well be regressing or moving backwards.
Yeah,
it really
so-
is.
so,
like,
you
if you are not constantly improving a car in this class, you're going backwards.
Correct.
Because everybody else is improving.
Right.
I can tell you right now, Mike Omic's coming up with some crazy ass shit. Super K, they have not shown their hand yet, but I'm telling you right now, they're not playing around.
I guarantee you neither of them have cruise control.
Yeah, you're right. You know who does have cruise control though? That
We
crazy
do.
bastard with the new Supra, not Jackie.
Alan.
Alan.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of Alan.
Nah. He's fast.
He's really fast.
He definitely has cruise control.
He's got cruise control.
He's got
Yeah.
AC.
So, he does have AC.
We gotta put AC in the car?
We might have to put you know what we can do? Because we have so much PDM, we could probably wire in a Prius electric AC compressor.
Oh!
See? That's why.
Yeah, that's why we've got
Whoever
two
asked that
PDMs.
question earlier,
We just answered it.
Boogie's gonna have AC.
Street car, man.
It is. You gotta go get ice cream.
You
You gotta get ice cream.
You can put it in the trunk.
Last
just run
thing
the
you want to
lines.
do is get
Yeah.
hot getting ice cream.
They were talking about a fan inside the car earlier. There you go. That's your
You
fan.
got it.
Yeah.
There you
Local
go.
there.
Perfect.
All right, guys. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. And we will see you next time.